Hello, 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 WeatherBrains, episode number 520, the pre-show for Monday, the 4th of January, 2016. I'm so glad Kevin is here.
Why is that?
Well, I have no show notes. I have no information on the guest. I don't have any I have nothing.
Well, I'm going to say hello and then go off and do my Fox show, so you're still on your own.
Great.
No, Nate knows this woman. I'll try and get in as much as I can, but yeah, we met her at the NWA, and she thinks that you retweet too much.
Yep.
Well, maybe I do.
You tweet too much. Period.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but I got a song. I got a song for tonight.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me try to play. Hang on. I might have fouled it up.
Uh-oh.
It's a good thing I checked it here.
Fouled up my pick for the night.
Let's see. Well,
let's get social.
Social.
With social media, where we can spread the word and grow our reach and find our fans in their newsfeed.
Oh my gosh.
You ever heard? So, you know, I listen to No Agenda with Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak, and they play that on there sometimes. That is so bad. It is. I mean, it gets worse. With every 10-minute interval, it just gets worse. So I'm gonna have to break that out.
I can just hear that as the opening theme to the social media, convention that social media examiners put on. It's in the conference room at the airport at Hyatt, and social media experts from all over the country descend.
Look up social media. Look up social media song on Google, and it goes to that YouTube video. It's bad.
Now I gotta go look.
So
social media what song?
Yeah, just search social media song, and I think it's the first thing that pops up. It's pretty bad.
Let's Get Social 2014.
Yeah, that's it. And it will lead you right to this.
Oh, this is exactly the group that I was just talking about. Social Media Examiner.
Wow.
Isn't that scary that I knew that?
That's downright creepy, as a matter of fact. It's beyond scary.
I think I'm out of here. Jeez, that's scary.
So let me see if I can bring our guest in here. I don't have
exactly from their
any information.
That's kind of depressing.
I saw her tweet, and I've got a picture of her, which is very helpful because
Carol, yeah.
I can look for the right person here.
What's her Twitter account?
I'm pretty sure I think she's the first one that pops up. Carol at clobomedia.com.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, she's been invited. Rick, how you doing?
I'm okay. I think I'm coming down with a cold or something, so hopefully my voice will hold out, but doing great. Otherwise...
You were the social media leader of the National Weather Service. The whole organization know us, so I'm glad you're here.
Chatting about weather and social media on WeatherBrains at Span Show. Listen here, kicking off at bottom of hour.
Yeah, so she should... If she's a social media expert, she ought to be able to figure out how to get on Google+.
You have to play the song for her, too.
And if she doesn't, we're just going to...
There she is.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
Hey.
Hey, Carol.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Sorry we had to put you off last month. I don't even remember why. Was it weather-related or something?
I think it was weather-related.
We had some big weather event. No, we're just glad you can figure out how to get on Hangouts because we will invite these PhD guys. I mean, really, we will invite these guys with IQs greater than 300, and they can't figure out how to get on the Google Hangouts. So
Google doesn't make it easy.
Well, I'll note that Bill usually does the pre-pro on this, and we wait for 20 minutes to get his people on, whereas I did the pre-pro for this one, and Carol is here without incident.
I know, Kevin, you were great. You walked me right through it.
Yeah. Although now that I think about it, I probably shouldn't have said that because then that recruits me to...
Yes, volunteered.
Well,
You just
you know,
stepped in it.
I am a
Kevin.
social media person, so if I couldn't figure out a Google Hangout, I guess my credibility would be a little suspect. But
Okay, well, from now on, you can do the pre-pro for all of us.
Yeah. And Carol, we give every guest a disclaimer. First off, this could be the worst hour of your life, and number two,
Kevin has already prepared me for that, and I'm
Okay.
doing it anyway. So
yeah, I'm about to say, you might want to run. And number two, we are live now on YouTube, and we go live on television here in 2 minutes. So we are kind of across multiple platforms. Not that that affects anything that you would do or say, but
not that it would. No.
you know, it has.
Carol, that's James that you've been talking to.
Yes,
And
I see.
on the bottom there, to your probably left, with the one that looks like Colonel Sanders, is Brian Peters.
Okay. Hi, Brian.
He's retired Weather Service and also works with James at the ABC affiliate in Birmingham.
And I tweet about 0.1%.
And then to this next of James is Rick Smith. He is the warning coordination meteorologist at the toughest office in the country in Norman, Oklahoma.
Hi, Rick.
Hey, I think
I
we
think we met
at the NWA meeting.
Yeah,
Oh.
I was going to
I
say.
think I recorded a little video thing.
Yeah,
Good to see you again. Thanks for coming on.
sure.
And we can have to wait until the television side joins us before we get started. And
Okay.
we
Yeah,
are
hopefully Nate will come along. He said he was, because Carol, I have a Fox show at 9, so I'm gonna bug out fairly quickly after we start. But hopefully I can get the ball rolling.
Did you see the email I just sent you? Like
No,
maybe 5 minutes ago.
no.
Kevin doesn't read
There it
his
is.
email. He's
No, I look at my email only once a
Well,
day.
I sent you I posted.
Oh, good. I see this.
Today
Yes.
that you might want to talk about some of that or not. I mean,
No,
you know,
yeah, sure.
whatever.
Well, I'm going to yeah. Usually, Bill works up a nice big intro for people and says, their history and so on and so forth. But I'm gonna guide you to do that on your own, if that's okay.
Of course.
And
I'm
I'll
happy to do that.
I'll forward this to Nate too. I just do it because I'm lazy.
Let me welcome our television viewers watching the channel known as James Span 24/7 on Monday nights at 8:30 Central. We capture the channel for 90 minutes of fun, foolishness, boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say occasionally outrageous things. So we're going to crank up the show in a second. In fact, since we're on television, let's do it here. I'm in the mood. And, of course, I'm the lead story tonight, as always. So if we have fog, subsidence, if it's cold, hot, if it rains, I'm the lead story now. Let me get the recorders going here. It's cold tonight, so that's the reason I'm the lead story.
Oh, it's 8:30 already.
Yeah, recorder 1, recorder 2.
Wow, we're starting 2016 with some.
We're
That's
starting. We're
that's a
starting
bad
on time,
precedent.
man. All right, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. WeatherBrains! Hey, time to talk weather in a brand new year. WeatherBrains, this is episode number 520 for January 4th, 2016. Welcome, we are back. We actually took a week off last week. We recorded the Greg Carbon year-ender right before Christmas, so we are rested, relaxed, and ready to get cranky. Brian, are you cranky tonight? Brian Peters, the internationally beloved meteorologist.
You need to speak for yourself. I'm cranky ever since the other day when I was watching the football game. I thought my head was going to explode over a car ad.
What?
Yes.
What?
This car ad shows how this guy picks up this girl and her dogs and takes her across the flowing stream. Safely, of course, in his car. And it's like, ah!
Okay.
Goes against
It's starting to click now. I understand.
Yep.
Yeah, it goes against everything.
Yeah, turn around and don't drown.
Don't drown, yeah.
I
Or
didn't-
drive in and, So anyway, my head's going to explode.
I would say this is the first Christmas week where I haven't gone anywhere. We haven't gone anywhere. I mean, we go at random places. We go really strange places at Christmas, random last-minute trips. We just decided to stay. And, of course, half the problem, I couldn't get out of town because every vacation day I had to come up here and work because of weather. We had some pretty volatile weather, but wound up having a staycation. And I will say that worked. I got some sleep. I'm relaxed, mellow, Kevin, are you mellow tonight?
Well, so far, I'm sure to get wound up because we're talking about social media, of course. But so far, I'm wound up. But I'll share with you on my way in. I'm forecasting 27 in Wichita Falls tonight, but I'm a little off according to Walgreens.
Wow. And for those that are listening, Walgreens is showing minus 76 Fahrenheit.
76. So clearly that was it just after 8 o'clock. So clearly overnight it will fall further. So I'm amending to what do we think? Maybe 94 below, something like that. I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rick, is it that cold in Oklahoma City?
I sure hope not. Gosh, that's crazy. You mentioned the Greg Carbon show, and of course we recorded that back on the 22nd of December. Gosh, he could have added 2 or 3 more top events of the year after that was recorded. I mean, we had some crazy weather to wrap the end of the year up.
Yeah, we really did. We had we had tornadoes and flooding and record warmth and. Yeah, I totally agree, but that's just the way it works sometimes.
Yeah.
But maybe he'll put up a final version of his top weather stories of 2015 up on his WCM site. But Kevin,
that show was the WeatherBrains fiscal year, not the calendar year.
Exactly.
There you
go. And Nate Johnson just popped in here. Nate has been out at the. Where have you been? The hair care clinic or what?
No.
No, I spent some time with my in-laws out in West Texas. Did a little flying, a little snow chasing.
Came up to Wichita Falls.
Yeah, I might have come and visited Mr. Selly there a little bit.
What?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
yeah.
So I got to find that other picture, too.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Nate. James is going to freak when he sees this.
Yeah,
Wait,
so we...
sorry.
Well, if I'm there and... we're just that close. I've come 95% of the way. What's another couple hours in the car for a tasty meal of Tex-Mex?
That's right. We had lunch at the El Phoenix in beautiful suburban Wichita Falls, Texas.
Awesome.
Stuff. And that's that free sopapillas that day was good.
Oh, that's right. They gave you all some of the freebies. That's nice.
And then
that's because you were with me, you understand.
Oh, okay. Well, that works. I mean, you were hanging out with local celebrities.
Well,
so.
Kevin is kind of a big deal, is what he's trying to say there.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it out loud, but anyway.
Kind
all
of
right,
a big
hang on.
deal.
I'm getting here. Oh, okay. Here it comes. You're gonna love this, James.
Okay. Share away.
I'm clicking as fast as I can.
We will
share screen.
Share
Okay,
for our
here it comes.
listeners a good description.
There we go, share. How about that?
Wow, he's got the hat.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
He's a very attractive man in that hat. I'm just saying, that's a good look for you, Nate. I like that. And for those that are listening, Nate is wearing the classic Kevin Selly snow emergency hat.
Yeah. No, and we should be truthful. That's not the hat because you were in possession of the hat.
That is Son of Hat.
That is Son of Hat. This is Son of Hat, which looks much. I have to say, every time I see the hat on TV or somewhere, it looks worse every time. What are you doing to that hat that I have entrusted you with?
He stuffs it in the corner.
Apparently so.
Well, this is the original Blizzard of 1993 hat.
Poor thing.
It needs
dust.
We need to take it to the hat store, and it's kind of like the suit store. We need to take it to the hat store and get the dust off this thing. We've had no blizzards. We've had no action here, so it's just been gathering dust in the museum of the closet back here. So
it worries me that people trust you. Because I entrusted you with that hat, and now this is what we're left with. Put it on. You look like Mr. Haney when you're wearing that hat.
Somebody said it looked like Freddy Krueger.
or that, exactly.
Well, I'm having to trade Son of Hat in for the Long John Canada toque. Because we're not going to get out of the 30s here tomorrow. I'm giddy about this. So I broke out the toque today, and it'll break out the Manzella glove mitt thingies tomorrow to stay warm.
All right. So before Kevin or Nate, one of you two, brings in our guest and introduces her, and before she hangs up on us, we do have a public service announcement we must run.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
Psst. Hey, kid.
Who, me? take a look at this.
Whoa! This professional-looking graphic says there'll be a largest of all-time, record-setting, polar vortex-induced superstorm developing in the upper Midwest, converging with a never-before-seen southern stream mega shortwave over the southeast, merging with an out-of-season Category 7 tropical system off the northeast coast, encountering an omega block-induced 1,250 millibar cold air high-pressure bubble over the northeast, affecting billions of people in March 2017.
You know what it means, don't you? Chicago, 3 degrees above absolute zero. 120,000-foot-top thunderstorms from New Orleans to Atlanta. And the antenna on the top of the new Freedom Tower in New York will be the only thing sticking out of the snow.
Whoa. I need to share this professional-looking graphic on my social media accounts right away. Where do I find it?
Right here, on the International Weather Authority Service Facebook page.
Remember, friends don't let friends share ridiculously long-range forecasts on social media. Only you can prevent social meteorology hype. This message from the Ad Council and anyone with a lick of sense.
Social. With social media, where we can spread the word.
Oh boy! All right, so Kevin, bring in our guest before she really runs.
Perfect introduction. Thank you so much. Well, Carol Fowler is our guest, and Carol and Nate and I met at the National Weather Association convention not too long ago, a couple months ago, in Oklahoma City. And Carol was promoting and talking about her new social media service. And you originally talked to a good friend of mine, Spencer Atkins, from Charleston, West Virginia. And he came over and he told me what you were doing. And I said, well, I got to talk about this. And so you and I visited. You were very generous with your time. We visited for a long time. And, you know, everybody that listens to
you hated social media. And it was
yeah, exactly. Everybody on this that listens to this program knows my feeling about this. And we went round and round on a little bit. And Carol generously offered Spencer, you know, a bit of your service, which we're going to talk about in just a second, for free.
Yeah.
And then you offered it to me, and I went, and then you persisted a little bit, and I had to call Nate over to run interference for me.
Yeah.
So
it was a little tense there for a while.
Yeah. No, we had all joking aside, we had a really interesting, lovely conversation. And what I want you to do before we get more deep into that, if you would, Carol, run your resume for us, because not only are you a social media person, but you're a former news director.
Right. Well, thanks, first of all, guys, for having me. It's a delight to be here, and we had a blast at the NWA conference, meeting many of you and talking about social media and weather and the intersection thereof. So I'm happy to join your esteemed show to talk about the subject.
Clearly, you haven't done your research if you think we're esteemed.
Wow. I've never heard our show called Esteemed.
All right, well, I'm just...
She said steamed.
Steamed, maybe, but not esteemed.
Not esteemed, okay. Well, my business, in a nutshell, is to help people understand social media and get the most out of it. I did, as you mentioned, spend most of my career in television news. I was one of those, mean news directors in the office that, gave talent a hard time, et cetera, et cetera. But seriously, I love TV, and when I left 4 years ago, I made it my business really to focus solely on the digital space, because I felt then, and I feel even more strongly now, that it's the future. And we're even at the point that I feel like if any of those of you who are TV meteorologists who are listening, if you didn't have your TV station tomorrow, if you lost your contract or something else befell the company and suddenly you found yourself without a quote-unquote home, would it be that devastating of a thing?
And before you go too much further, tell what the service is that you were promoting at NWA.
Well,
my follow-up is going to be,
Before you go there, I'm nosy. Where in television news did you work? I'm
Chicago.
A nosy guy.
Yeah, my company is based in Chicago. I spent just about all of my career in Chicago. So I was news director. I was most recently news director at Fox here in the city. Before that, I was news director at CBS. WBBM, and I also served as news director at WGN.
So you're like kind of a big deal. I mean, that's a big market here.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
All
right. I'm sorry, Kevin. Back to that. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just
No,
wanted to get the clarity on the background here.
No, I wanted her to do that. That's good context.
Yeah. So I understand meteorologists. I know what TV anchors and reporters are trying to do. I know the mission of TV stations to serve your community. And I'm just taking all that knowledge and bringing it back against social media, and then bringing it back to the industry to help, improve its game.
So tell us the service that you were promoting there, and the follow-up is going to be that little service, and I mean little derogatory,
right.
but it's within a larger company that's doing something.
Yes. Okay. So my larger company, I'm CEO of Globo Media. Globo Media does social media consulting, and we have a product called the Soch Reports. It was with the Soch Reports that I and my colleagues came to the NWA to talk to meteorologists about how we feel it applies to what you do. So the Soch Reports, in a nutshell, is a weekly analytics report that we provide people who basically are in charge of marketing themselves in social media. So that would include meteorologists, certainly just about anybody in TV news, TV anchors, reporters, but it can also apply to other professions. It applies to CEOs or realtors or elected officials or attorneys, basically anyone who promotes their brand in front of the social audience.
Is that what the larger company is doing?
The larger company is doing that, plus working with actual businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, to understand social media and get the most out of it.
So what drew me into the conversation after I talked to Spencer was my assessment of what you were doing was that you were not going to work for, well, I guess you could, but you're not working for the company that owns my station. You are offering a service directly to me as an individual.
Well, the reason that became our focus, quite frankly, is because it really dawned on me, and being a former news director, I had a keen appreciation of the fact that there are a number of businesses that are pitching their services on the station level to get stations to buy their analytics, but the underserved are the actual talent. They're under increasing pressure to use social media, but for the most part, and it varies from company to company, but you're pretty much on your own. It's up to you to sink or swim. It's up to you to figure it out. Some people are aggressive and take to it. Other people feel it's an awkward dance and might not do as well. And the problem is, it's not really...
I would actually throw in from our experience is that as well-intentioned as your social media managers may be, they work for the station.
Yes.
Not for you.
And that's talent. Yeah.
And that I think is perhaps something that the folks that are fortunate enough to work with a social media manager, and we've got a great one, and I think she does a really good job of, looking out for the talent as well as the TV station, but at the end of the day, the TV station writes her paycheck, and if there's a difference between, she'll lay it out, but she's going to say, I got to recommend you do this.
Well, and the social media managers are, like everybody else in television, are worrying about, 11 hats every day instead of the usual 9. They don't have time to look at your Twitter account, Nate. Nate, you're doing what you're doing, and they're trusting that you're going to use good judgment, and it's all with kind of a wing and a prayer. And the fact of the matter is when contract time comes up, you're going to be evaluated in part on how you, if you're comfortable in the social space, how you're using it to connect with the audience. So that's where our service comes in, and we've been... Let's see, we launched in beta in February, so almost a year ago it's been. Time has flown. And we formally launched as a service in August. So the NWA conference was one of our first stops to really get the word out that we're here to serve. We're here, it's a new product with a new spin that works for people and not companies.
And
so that's the differentiator.
I have heard tell, and I'm sorry to interrupt you because I got to go in a minute, but Nate's going to pick up. But
Yeah.
I have heard tell that in Hollywood now, what happens if you're an actor is you go to an audition for a movie, and the producers instantly punch you up on social media to see how many Twitter followers you have, because their concern is obviously, I guess they want you to be a good actor, but one of their primary concerns is the promotional value that you carry. As a former news director, and I know it's been 4 years, are news directors doing the same thing?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, you are being evaluated when you're hiring someone. As news directors are deciding who they're going to hire, who they're going to bring on staff, they're definitely looking at their social accounts because your comfort level and your ability to leverage the content you create in front of that audience is part of your value. So it used to be, in the old days, we evaluated talent based on their on-camera performance and obviously their knowledge, and particularly their knowledge in the case of meteorologists. Now it's your social performance as well as your on-air. I mean, it's one other aspect of whether you're the best fit.
So what is the ROI for weather on social media?
Well, the ROI to the person or the ROI to the station?
To the end, to everyone, to the end user, the viewer / user, to the station, and to the meteorologist.
Okay. So the return on the investment is really, you're looking, ROI meaning return on investment. You're really looking at what are you getting out of it for the time you spend on Twitter, on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you what meteorologists tell me, and you guys can tell me if this is true, is that social media has been, has changed what you do profoundly in your ability to collect weather information instantly from your viewers. If you're not taking advantage of social media just to help your broadcast, you're really leaving a lot out there. You're not taking it to where it should be.
And part of my objection to get to that point on that, and I know this horse is long out of the barn, and I'm the last remaining guy to say this, is that we should have done that ourselves, but we missed that opportunity as an industry to better connect with them and allow them to provide us and share information with us on platforms that we controlled or monetized, as opposed to being at the whim of Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey.
Well, every company in America feels the same way. Trust me, none of the news publishers like the idea that Facebook is a gatekeeper. I mean, I would venture to say every television station in America gets most of its web traffic from Facebook now. It's a larger source of referral traffic than Google.
So let me
every media company, and it's really turned Facebook in particular has turned everything upside down.
So let me get. I know we talked a little bit about Facebook. I find a particular danger in the Facebook algorithm leaking weather information to people that is instantly old when it's put out. But when I put stuff out, either advisories or whatever they are, I'll see people doing that hours and even days later. They're liking it or they're sharing it, and I find that to be a particularly troubling thing. On Twitter, you got to be sitting there watching your feed go by, or it's gone. And I find those to be push mechanisms where you're pushing stuff at the end user, whereas everybody else who is is an advertiser or a message giver in the world is also pushing, as opposed to telling people, look, if you need this information, we would rather that you pull it to yourself from us and a credible source, as opposed to having it pushed at you along with every other message. And that's another opportunity that we missed. And I think the people that are pulling are much more valuable to an advertiser because they're engaged and they're asking for that information.
Yes, true. And I think that's why for meteorologists, Twitter is more relevant, holds more potential, and done the right way can be definitely a two-way conversation.
So we were, and I got to drop this bomb and then leave. But this is what really got Nate and I going.
Show title.
Drop the bomb and leave. That's
drop the bomb and leave.
I like that one.
Okay, so that's how it works. All right.
Well, yeah, the clock is against me here, but I'm going to try and listen. But
hey, you're the one that said we were esteemed.
Yeah, that's right.
I know. I'm going to have to take that back, I guess.
We were talking about Twitter, and obviously the conversation turns to James, who has so many Twitter followers, and he's so active.
Right.
And you told us that James retweets too much.
Well, you asked me what I thought of his account.
Yes.
And I can speak with some authority, James, because you have not been a client of ours yet. But several of our clients have picked you to serve as, the person they would like to benchmark against. So just to kind of back up and explain, one of the when we go through the process of setting someone up as a client, we talk to them about other social accounts and people that they feel are their peers or competitors and who they would like to have their activity and best practices shown in that context. So in monitoring James's account, it's quite obvious that you do a lot of retweeting. You also post a lot, but you post an awful lot, but like hundreds and hundreds of posts a week, which is way off the charts. But you also do a lot of retweeting. And I made the comment to Kevin that I thought you retweeted too much. And he pushed back and said, oh my gosh, no, that's showing love and this and that and the other. And so I guess I would ask you, James, why do you retweet as much as you do?
Well, and again, let me just say this. I'm no social media expert. I don't know anything about it. People ask me all the time to speak on this subject, and I'm not the guy.
Well, you're not doing too shabby, let's put it that way.
But what's happened, I have become the town crier in this state, and to some degree in the weather enterprise. I don't know why. I'm in theory a local weather guy that hosts this show that's somewhat global, and people send me information, and some of it is extremely useful, and some of it has nothing to do with weather. Like somebody might send me, I'm in Topeka, Kansas. I just felt the ground shake. This is a big deal. I'll retweet that because they want me to get the word out. I think a lot of people send me information because I can distribute that to a very large number of people in a matter of seconds, and they want that. And I'm providing a service to them and to those that follow me because what I retweet, in my opinion, has some valuable information for a pretty large subset of those that follow me. So it's almost like a town crier function. Why people send me information about explosions and wrecks and aurora pictures from Manitoba, I don't know, but I'm honored that they came to me. There's a million weather people on Twitter and social media. You could send that to anybody, but for some reason they picked me, and I'm honored that they did that.
Answer is, I'm sorry, the answer, but I'm trying to do my show. The answer is that you make them famous. You give them their 15 minutes of fame.
Well, no, I don't know. I mean, some want the spam retweet. It's a big deal. But I think they want it distributed. If there's an important piece of information that they have, whether it's weather or something else, they want it to be seen by the masses. And I am the publisher that's close to them, and I respond. A lot of people have big social media followers, and they don't respond to anybody, which is idiotic in my opinion. It's a two-way street. And
I agree with you.
You got to be responsive, and I just do that as a service. And quite frankly, a lot of times, believe it or not, I'm busy. I mean, some people think I sit around, in my mom's basement, tweeting all day. It doesn't work that way because I get up every morning before 5. I do weather on about 24 commercial radio stations around the country. I have a wife. I have 2 children. I speak in schools every day. I'm the chairman of the board of a very large tertiary care hospital in this city. I'm on the board of a college in this city. I'm involved I'm on a steering committee bringing back a big football program, a Division I football program. These are things I do to give back to my local community that has served me so well over the years. I work the television night side, and if you're a TV person, Carol, I come in here in the afternoon, and now with television, it never stops. It used to be you're worried about being on television at 5 and 10. I'm an old guy.
Right.
Now it just doesn't stop. You go on at 4 in the afternoon and it just doesn't stop. So a lot of times, like somebody will say, I see a very bright star that's glimmering red or something, and what is it? I don't have time to go look it up on the Sky Tonight site or whatever. I'll just retweet it, and people can respond the information back to these people. So I don't know. I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. My opinion, we're all feeling our way in the dark learning this, and I learn something every day and every week, and by you being on this show, I'm learning something. So I'm no expert. I'm just a schmuck.
Yeah, well, James, I will say if someone tells you they're an expert in social media, it's BS. There are no experts, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert. True. I mean, we're all feeling our way. I just have the benefit of reading tweets for a living. I read tweets all the time, and I read tweets of people that I'm not following. So I have the benefit of having it be my body of work and doing research, and during, as a process of having read and, analyzed millions of tweets, there are certain things that bubble up to the surface as working.
Such as.
Yeah, give us the 5 greatest tips for social media, right? Free. You're not going to send us an invoice. You're going to do it on this show right here. And by the way, let me just say, we're overlooking, Carol, the greatest tweeter within the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, period. There is no comparison to him, and he'll never say that because he's a man of humility. But Rick Smith and what he does with the social media accounts personally and at the Weather Service in Oklahoma City, you want an example. You go see what he's doing, not what I'm doing. I'm just, I'm loosey-goosey here, but this guy is really good. So give us all 5 tips free. Give us some freebies.
Okay. I would say the number one thing you have to do, Twitter in particular, Facebook less so much, but Twitter in particular, is you have to show up and you have to be on it. And yes, it is a 24/7 commitment. People think they can open, it's kind of like making a commitment to a blog. Either you're in or you're out. You're not halfway. If you're halfway, and for sure if you're out, you're never going to gain traction. You have to be on it. And James, to your point about, hey, you're a service. You're providing a service. You really are providing a service. My only point on the retweeting was that the experience for your followers is they're seeing a lot of retweets in their timeline. And our advice to clients is retweets are fine, but retweets are really for exceptional content. And you have to kind of sit back and think, is this so exceptional that I want my followers who are already time-starved, do I want to call attention to something and say, hey, this is worth your time? The reason they're following you is because they're interested in what you have to say. So I guess the number one piece of advice, and that was a little bit of a tangent, but the number one piece of advice is you need to post at least 50 times a week. If you're posting less than 50, then you might as well forget it. You've got to be out there multiple times a day, hourly, if not hourly, pretty darn consistently. You're not going to really get that far, and I'm talking about growing your personal brand. So what would we coach people on how to get a stronger social footprint by connecting with your audience, becoming better known, and getting better engagement on your posts. So that's probably tip number one.
I don't feel like I'm sitting in the news director's office right now. I don't know. But go ahead. What's number 2?
Does anybody have a question about that, or I'll move on to number 2?
Well,
Nate's got something he wants to say. I can see the wheels spinning.
I've seen a lot of people try to get to whatever standard, and I, as a general rule, I'm not, and as a manager in my office, I'm not a big fan of quotas.
Right.
50 times a week feels like a quota. It feels like an arbitrary number that it's a stick, we're going to club you with it if you don't get there, and if you cross it, then we'll sort of look past it when it comes contract time. We won't club you with that particular stick.
No. I'm not saying the state. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that statistically, This is the data talking.
Now this is what I want to hear.
This isn't your manager talking. Everything that I'm going to talk to you guys about is not what Carol Fowler thinks. It's what the data says. We have had the opportunity to look at thousands and thousands, millions of tweets. And after a while, you see, okay, who are the users that are doing the best? Who's gaining followers at a quicker rate? Who's engagement? Who's getting the most retweets and replies for every post they're putting out there? There are certain practices that over time you see a pattern. And the pattern I'm talking to you guys about is the fact that the people who don't tweet, 50 is a general. You could make it 60, you could make it 65, but in that area, if you're tweeting less than that in a week, you're not going to get into that stratosphere that you possibly hope to be in. Does that make sense?
It does, and I appreciate the fact that you clarified that this isn't just some number that you're pulling out of your rear end.
Hey, I know of many stations that do have quotas, and they say, hey, you've got to post 6 times a day or whatever, and I'm not going to sit here and say that that's right or wrong. Every company has to make a decision of what it takes to motivate its people. Social media done right is done organically. It's not done with quotas. It's done because you love it and you're getting great feedback and you feel like it's worth your time. And when it's done well, that's usually the case.
So one of the things that I've started to notice in the last 6 months or so, since one of the major weather graphics vendors has made this easier to do, is a lot of people setting up auto tweets at the top of every hour, and it'll go something like, it's the top of the hour, or they might have even set up 24 of them so that it's 2 o'clock. Here's a lunchtime or an after lunch check of your radar. Nothing on the radar. You'll see that 5 times, 10 times before you ever see anything at all.
Those don't work.
Thank you.
They don't work.
Thank you. From your lips to God's ear. All right, number 2. Because they drive me nuts.
They don't work.
And like clockwork, and most of the time they're not at the top of the hour. It's 2:17 or 2:35 or whatever that it comes through. And my sense of that is, if you're going to, it sort of goes back to your comment about the retweeting. If I'm going to tweet something, I want to bring it. I'm doing it to bring it to your attention. If there's nothing for me to see, it goes back to the consultant idea of, we're going to lead with the radar every weather hit because we have it and it's a promotional thing, not we're going to lead with it because we really think you need to see it. And I think that drives viewers nuts. It drives me nuts.
Well, and most people on Twitter can see right through that. They know it's a robot putting out the tweet.
Yeah.
You can tell. Okay.
Yes. Number 2.
Number two. And this is.
I feel bad, by the way, that we didn't start at the back and then we're counting up, but we're already gone. So, number 2.
Number 2. TV people are way too promotional, and maybe.
Do you think so?
Yeah. Actually, this was one of the tipping point for me in deciding, is there a business here? Is there really a business here? Oh, yeah, there's a business here, because TV anchors in particular, there's some bad practices out there. And most of them are...
Give us some names. Give us some accounts to go check out.
Oh, you don't have to look hard.
Yeah.
Trust me, you don't have to look hard. The late news anchors there are examples of late news anchors in every market in America who have no idea what they're doing on social media. And the problem is with the news anchors is they're not out in the field. They don't have as much to talk about. Reporters and meteorologists and your sports people, they got a lot to talk about. They got a lot to share, and the sports people have the most fun with it because they can share opinion and they can really get humorous, and they're having a field day. Sports people in particular are having a field day, but weather people aren't far behind. Weather people have really, really grabbed the wheel and are there's some amazing best practices out there from weather people. But the problem is that TV people, and they think they're doing the right thing because they think they're pleasing their boss, but they don't tell you anything in their posts. They're just teasing, watch me on TV and I will tell you. And social media is so far past that. It's so far past that. Maybe there was a time when at first it was like, oh, it'll be cute to go on and tell people to watch us on TV. People want their information now. They don't want to wait for, your broadcast to come on. If you're going to talk about your broadcast, our advice is always include a link to the live stream and say, hey, right now on TV we're talking about this. Click here on your phone and watch us. There's a place for that. But a rule of thumb is that no more than 1 in 20 tweets should be promotional. That means about 5% of the time or less. And your social media account cannot feel like advertising. When it feels like advertising, it's one big turnoff. And most people in television have not figured out how to do this, unfortunately. But it's better than it used to be, but there's still a long way to go.
And I totally agree. I would say over maybe half the people that follow me don't even know that I'm on television. I could go down to the campus of the University of Alabama, which they probably have 40,000 students or something. I'd say 80% of them don't know that I'm on television. They find that the TV news product is like a bad Saturday Night Live skit. It's Ron Burgundy, good evening on the news. They don't watch this stuff, and if I drive people to products that they don't want, then what good am I doing them? That doesn't make any sense. Tonight at 10, you'll find out. You can't. I totally agree. I will give you a big amen, sister. You nail that one. That's good.
Well, and television is coming around to embrace the reality that there's no appointment viewing anymore, and we've got to go, meaning the royal we in television, we have to go to the audience rather than the audience expecting the audience to come to us. And, I remember as a news director when I was at CBS, this was probably a year or two after Facebook came to be. Our creative services director, we were in a department head meeting, and our creative services director said, I think our main anchor, Rob Johnson's actually still the main anchor there. I think Rob Johnson should have a Facebook page. And honestly, the first thought that came into my mind as his news director was, oh my gosh, who's going to monitor that? How are we going to have, that's just going to be somebody else that's going to have to worry about, making sure the content's right, and then people aren't coming on there and leaving, inappropriate messages or complaining about this and that, about the station or the news product. And I had this immediate sense of dread. Well, of course I got it all wrong. And I can't even imagine. I mean, it just tells you how fast things have changed, that, Facebook is not too much beyond 10 years old. And there was a time in which we lived in a different world, in which people had to watch the late news to find out what the weather was going to be the next day. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. We live in a new world, so all of us are personal brands. We all have to use every avenue possible to reach that potential audience. And James, to your point, young people are not watching TV news. They're on Instagram and Twitter primarily, and Facebook
and Snapchat.
And Snapchat, right? Although there aren't many news organizations that are really using Snapchat. It's still in its infancy, I think, in terms of being able to be used in a meaningful way by local news.
If I need to reach 15 to 23-year-olds, I found that to be the most effective. Let me kill that screen share. Sorry, I found that to be the most I find that to be the most effective platform for reaching 17, 18, 19-year-olds. They love it. They think old people can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm old and I figured it out, and I don't use it a lot, but if I need to push a tornado warning or flag people that we've got a big outbreak, I will use that in a heartbeat. And you have to have a firm grasp each one of these platforms in their demographics and who you're talking to and how to use them. And I'm a big believer that if you don't get it, don't use it.
All right, Carol,
do it right.
I got 2 questions that have come up on Twitter because that's what we do here.
Yeah.
First question is, do you think that this, especially number 2, the over promotion, whatnot, do you think that guidance also applies in smaller markets? Is that a universal that we promote too much? Does that apply to smaller markets?
I'm not sure why smaller markets would be any different than any other place. I absolutely think TV people promote too much. And I think look, you're not going to advance your own brand. Let me back up for a second. I use the analogy often that social media is like a dinner party. If you go to a dinner party with some people you know, most of the people you don't know, and you walk around the dinner party and you talk about, hey, I did this today, and hey, how about me, and hey, how about where I work, and aren't I great? Oh, I did the most awesome thing today. You would be a crashing bore. And after a while, no one would want to talk to you. And social media is exactly that way. If everybody would adopt the mindset that I want to be an interesting person, I want to be an inquisitive person, I want to give people the respect of saying, hey, that's pretty cool. Oh, don't you look great? You want to be a generous person who really is a 360 person and not just kind of like, hey, it's all about me. That's how social media has to be treated. And I don't think it really matters much whether I have had some media people say, well, you know, in my market, Facebook is everything, and Twitter, I don't have to worry about Twitter because most people are on Facebook. I think anybody in the news business, whether you're in a tiny market or you're in a big market, certainly needs to pay attention to Twitter. Twitter is where personal brands are made because of unique aspects to Twitter that we could probably devote a whole show to. But I would just say for those meteorologists who are listening that work in smaller markets, it's important to your career to start building a Twitter following, or at least get down with using it and be acclimated to it, because when you want to go to a bigger, better market, it's going to matter. And it's going to be how you're evaluated.
All right. Second question, and I think we all have this, and having sat in the manager's chair, you've no doubt had to deal with this from your management.
Yeah.
Todd Yakubian from KATV in Little Rock asked, how much money does a TV station make when they give away all the information on social media? In other words, the monetization question.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear this.
It's only taken us 46 minutes, but here we are.
Well, that's really an industry problem and not the problem of the individuals, only to the extent that, of course, you want your company to make money because they write the checks, and that's how you're paid. So I don't mean to sit back and be flip about it and say, not your problem. But the thing of it is that, and it kind of gets back to the ROI question that Kevin brought up earlier in the conversation. If you look at social media as strictly, what did social media do for us today? How much money did we make? How much web traffic did it generate? How many eyeballs did it bring to our newscast? I don't think any media company is going to be completely satisfied. Facebook does generate a lot of web traffic for stations, and I think without a doubt the digital managers at most of the media companies are very happy with social media, because many of the young people that are finding your websites through Facebook would probably not get there any other way. They're not using Google to Google the stories and find you. They're seeing perhaps a story or a post shared on Facebook, and they're finding it that way. ROI is a tricky thing. I guess I would say, to kind of flip the question around, where would you be if you didn't use social media? Where would you be as a news organization if you ignored Twitter, if as meteorologists you ignored Facebook, if you did not look at the pictures and the information that you're able to get in an instant through social media? Where would you be then?
Hopefully, I'd be working on my own company's website that was seeded, where responsibility was ceded to World Now and IBW, what was that other one? IBS, whatever it was. IBS, all those other ones where responsibility for development was ceded rather than asking us what it was that we needed to reach people.
Right. Well,
see, because now I'm worried because I feel like, okay, well, we've screwed up for however many years this has been, and well, we're just going to have to sit in this pool of muck, this muddy bathwater, because, well, we don't have a choice now.
Well, you always have a choice, but I'm of the opinion that I think social media, it's not perfect, but it's phenomenal. I mean, it's phenomenal in the potential that it holds. It has made our world seem like a pretty tiny place. I mean, the thought that one of the things we do for our clients at the Social Reports is we analyze where their followers live. And
is that data readily available to us, or do you have to tap into the API to get that?
The Twitter API.
You have to get that from there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to probably have to jump in and out because we're still on a show here. But
Kevin sounds like he's covering a golf match. This is great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vern Lundquist.
The point I was making, and I'll make it quickly, is that most people are blown away when they find out that they have followers in China, and they have followers in New Zealand, and they have followers in South Africa, and they have followers, and it's really common. I would guess all of you have followers all around the world.
But what good is that to my business model?
Well, if you're thinking, again, of building your personal brand...
But I'm not going to go to work in China.
No. I know that. But they're following you because they want content in your market. They're not following you and expecting you to tell them about China.
They don't want the temperatures generated by my WSI machine, the current temperatures. They're not interested in that.
Then why do you think they're following you?
Because they're sitting around following people, hoping that you'll follow them back so that they can broadcast their message.
Not in all. Well, in some cases, yes, but not in all cases.
I would argue, and I have no proof of this, in more than I think James is now a content farm for all the people that I get who are not interested in following me, because they go to his account, and he has hundreds of thousands of followers, and they just sit through. They go, oh, follow, because I get these crazy things from and Nate, where were Nate and I were in a secret meeting. Somebody said they had the second highest number of followers was something weird like Argentina,
Pakistan,
Afghanistan, or something like. What good is that? I'm not saying that it's bad, but what good is it?
I don't know that there's an ROI to having followers in Pakistan. My only point in bringing that up is that social media has brought the world together in a way that I don't think any of us could have fathomed. And every day that goes by, the potential is there. It's up to us to figure out, okay, how do we make good use of this? Mm-hmm. And I can guarantee you, in local market after local market, there are meteorologists that are making fabulous use of social media.
Define fabulous.
Well, morning show meteorologists they're waking up and getting people as they're waking up, telling them what's going on the ground, talking to them about, travel conditions and, rain, snow.
Mm-hmm. And how are those but how are those guys monetizing it? Those people are not tuning into, especially if they're 20-something, they're not tuning into the morning show. Nor are they going
but
to
they're
the
able
website.
to put together. But they're able to put together a more accurate, better show because they have that information. Do you think there's a value to having the highest quality product?
Sure,
Okay.
I wouldn't argue that at all. I think that's one of the few benefits. But if we're losing 7 to 10% of our viewing audience per year, that's not sustainable.
No, but it's not just because of social media that television's in trouble.
Right, but we're accelerating it.
Well, you're kind of blaming the messenger in a respect. I mean, you're saying, hey, if it weren't for all these other choices, television would be in a better place. And
No.
The fact of the matter is, it's good for the public to have choices. It's up to television to figure out, and TV people in general, to use it wisely and use it to their benefit.
Yes, no, and that my argument today is not that. My argument in the beginning was, look, be careful where we're treading here. My frustration today, and I need to just get over it, is that it's done. I mean, I lost this battle. It's done. It's here. We have to deal with it. But I don't see, other than farming content, I don't see where it's helping us, and I don't think the time in motion, especially for somebody like James, what percentage of an hour, James, are you dealing with Twitter?
It depends on like if I'm at a school doing a school program that's 50 minutes long, that's 10 minutes I'll look at it. If I'm on television, in the studio during the news block, which runs forever in the evening, I'll probably deal with it for maybe 5-10 minutes an hour. But if I'm back here working, writing and doing this kind of stuff, I'll deal with it much longer on a longer basis. I might spend 20 or 30 minutes.
So a minimum of 5 to 10 minutes an hour, but often many hours through the day more, and 24/7. So that's another thing where I think, and this is one of my issues with the personal brand argument, is we developed this idea, and people who I respect tremendously, like Terry Heaton, who were promoting the idea of the personal brand, but in a weather application, what you've committed yourself to is 24/7, 365. And if you decide you need to take a break, well, if somebody comes to your page on the time that you're taking a break or the day that you're taking a break, they're not getting that information. Rather than developing the station brand and the station people together to say, look, user, here is a canonical source of information that will be continuously and accurately updated. We didn't do that. We missed that opportunity.
Well, I would disagree, Kevin. I think those two things are not mutually exclusive, and I think you can play both ends in such a way that you're not playing them against the middle, but that you're leveraging one to the other, but it requires you to actually know that that's what you're doing ahead of time, and I think that's probably giving too many people too much credit in a more slapdash ad hoc, we need to be on social, so go create an account, go do something kind of world.
But that's the way it ironed out. That's the way it ironed out. And, I mean, the rest of us are not James. We're not willing to spend 24 hours a day on social media.
I didn't mean to cut Carol off. I'm curious what she has to say about that.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say there are examples of stations that have done just what you suggested, Kevin. They've created Facebook pages featuring their weather team.
Right.
And they're doing a pretty darn good job.
And they're only reaching 2 to 3% of the people that like their page because of the algorithm.
Exactly. And
but we do it. The weather people do it because we feel like it gives us more control of putting the information out rather than the websites that we've been given.
Well, and again, I mean, the stations love it because even though it's a little higher than 2 or 3%, I would say average post maybe goes to 6-8% of the people who like your Facebook page.
That's still pretty bad.
It's still pretty bad, but my point was it's still sending the stations a tremendous amount of web traffic.
What is the data that supports that to the weather part of the website?
It depends on the analytics. It's any station's digital manager can pull up those analytics. I mean, it varies from place to place.
I got to go sit on the set. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can see where your referral traffic's coming from, but Facebook is sending it to you. But
So-
your larger point about whether promoting the personal brand is at the sacrifice of building the team, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can do both, and I would just say probably James is one of the notable example of someone who's able to be a success on television and use social media to reach an audience that probably would never see him there or think to tune in.
Let me ask you this, Carol. You're in Chicago, big
Yes.
market. What's the
Yes.
third
Three.
largest in the number 3? All right. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
who's the biggest big time TV person in Chicago? Is it Skilling or somebody? Who is the most visible TV person in Chicago?
In weather, Tom Skilling.
No, well, I mean weather, news, sports, whatever.
He's pretty much it.
So how
Yeah.
how many Twitter followers does Tom have? Out of curiosity.
I'd have to look him up.
I'll cheat. I just looked. It's 57,000.
Okay.
So is that a
he
good
is-
number? I see.
No, he should be much higher than that. But Tom does not use social media like you do.
And again, my point is this: I've never been that good at anything I do, but I will work harder than anybody else. A lot of people know my story. When I was 7, my father abandoned me and my mom, and I became the man of the house. I have no brothers and no sisters, and I had to work hard at a very young age. And to this day, that ethic is carried through with me. And I worked very hard at that, and I think that's part of it. And it seems to me, just an observation from some schmuck down here in Alabama, people in bigger markets are lazy. They don't work hard. Why is that?
Wow, that's a deep question that I don't know that I'm fully prepared to answer.
Yeah, she knows she won't say anything.
I will say in the defense of the journalists in Chicago, many of whom I know, there's some pretty hard workers here. But I will say that when you're in a smaller market and you're really working hard to get to a bigger, better market, that tends to motivate you to have a little more hustle.
I don't want to go to Chicago. I worked in Dallas when I was 20-something. That's not my motivation.
No, and I didn't mean to suggest that. I'm just saying that as a general rule, that might be where the stereotypes come in. There may be a little bit more truth to it because people. And again,
I'm not knocking anybody. Everybody has a different feel for why they exist and what they should be doing. I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong.
Right.
I just work really hard at engaging with the people that I serve and answering their questions. I'm honored that they come to me. I don't think of them as idiots. Now, that's true, there might be a few out there, but I don't think of them as being idiots or morons. And I've been around these editorial meetings. I have heard people in these meetings, Carol, and I'm not saying you say this, but I've heard news executives call the viewers idiots, and they don't know what they want. And I've got news for these news people. The viewers think they're idiots, the people in management. And unless they respect their audience, it's just not going to work. And I try and have a servant attitude toward the people that follow me. And I think that's one reason that's worked for me. And most people don't seem to have that attitude. They've still got this, Ron Burgundy, I'm a big deal kind of thing. And that's not working anymore. It will not work in 2016.
No. And I would say one of the biggest advantages of social media, or the biggest values of social media, is that it really smokes out people who aren't authentic. You can tell the inauthentic plastic people.
Yeah, blow-dry boobs, what we call them.
Do we know anybody that has left television and been able to make a living on their own with their social media contacts or their own website or anything like that? Because I know people that have tried, and none of them have been able to do it.
Well, there's an example. There's an example here in Chicago that I'm familiar with. He actually wound up getting another TV job, but for a time period, Mike Kaplan, who was doing weather at the ABC O&O here in Chicago, left, and immediately, I mean, literally without missing a beat, started broadcasting on Facebook and cut videos, and every day churned out a forecast and responded to viewers. It was amazing.
Is there a business model behind it?
You know what? I think Mike would be a really interesting guest for this show to talk to him about that.
Yeah.
Because he was truly an example of the weather renaissance man who, you know, it kind of gets back to what the point I made early on about, imagine if you didn't have your TV station, how much would it change your job? Could you continue essentially doing what you do via social media? It's not that far-fetched.
But I don't think nobody's done it so far, and certainly people that have been removed from jobs have tried.
Right.
And then the problem there is you're really committed to 24/7.
But I mean, at least the option is there. I mean, before social media, there wasn't even that option. I mean, you had a TV station. Where were you going to go? Were you going to work in radio or?
Right. But you're committed to 24/7, and that's not sustainable.
Well, probably not.
I mean, I think I could do that. And I think the main revenue stream, if I did that, would be a James Spann app that's advertiser supported. We had one, and new people I work for, and there's no secrets here. I mean, I work for Sinclair, largest operator of TV station in the country. They don't do business that way. They pulled it. They combine those elements into something else. But I do not want to say how much money that app was pulling in, but it was pulling in a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. And I could survive just off that just fine. So I think there's ways of doing it. But
you have an infrastructure.
But you would never. But see, the point though, and I want to make this point because I think it's really important, James. You and others like you are in the position to do that because of the way you have built your brand to this date.
But not everybody knows. Wait a second, though.
Okay.
Not everybody knows that James has, because people ask me this, because I don't know if you know, Carol, I was James's first intern, so I have a long history with James. But a lot of people ask me, what is he doing? How does he do this? But he has an infrastructure behind him. And in the earlier days, it was a couple of people, and now it's a couple of different people. But it's not just him. I'm not taking away from what he does. He works around the clock, and nobody either can or wants to do that. But there is an infrastructure behind you, James. Oh, is he frozen? He's gone.
Yeah. Well, Carol,
Sinclair cut him off.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. The Chrome has a memory leak. About every 30 minutes it blips for 30 seconds.
I was talking about
part of that.
The infrastructure behind you.
Yeah, the Weather Factory. Yeah, right. We have a business called the Weather Factory. It used to be called the Weather Company. We sold the name to somebody. I can't say who, but you might figure it out. But no, I've got people that do stand behind me. Now, I've been very blessed. I worked for the All-Britons for 19 years. Greatest people I've ever worked for, and they allowed me the freedom to do all this stuff. And most people don't have the infrastructure. I do agree with that, Kevin. You're right. But let me just say this while I've got the floor here. We've got to stop because I am the lead story on the late news, and I've got to roll a couple of quick pre-recorded segments, and Carol's got to get to points 3, 4, and 5. We've only been through 2 of them.
Oh, that's right.
And we have a pile of people listening here, so let me just put a quick timeout. We're going to roll Professor Peters. We got Tony Rice in the astronomy report. Aubrey's not here, but I'm going to read at least one. I promised one guy I'd read his email. We'll do picks of the week and a whole bunch more. A lot to go here as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
If you've been a weather enthusiast for even a short time, you've probably heard the term jet stream. The jet stream is a high-velocity river of air that flows completely around the Earth at the mid-latitudes. Forecasters generally use the 200 or 300 millibar charts to identify the jet stream. During the winter, the jet core is located generally closer to the 300 millibar level since the air is colder and more dense during the cool season. The 200 millibar chart works better for the jet stream in the warm season. However, either chart will work for most instances. Many hot air balloonists have tried to ride this river of air around the world without much success. This river of air is not continuous. Embedded within the jet stream are higher velocity jet streaks. Jet streaks are segments of faster wind speed within the jet stream. At 300 millibars, the air density is much lower than near the ground. A 100-knot wind at the 200 or 300 millibar level does not feel as strong as a 100-knot wind at the surface, but even though the density is smaller, these air currents are the driving force which moves storm systems and build troughs and ridges. The jet stream is useful in predicting temperature since it divides colder air to the north from warmer air to the south. The transition between temperatures on each side of the jet is often very abrupt. Heights are higher to the south of the jet and lower to the north. The jet stream flows from west to east. As a trough builds over a region, it often indicates colder temperatures due to cloudier weather and northerly wind. On the other hand, a ridge builds by low-level warm air advection and upper-level forcing. Air in a ridge is sinking and is thus expanding and creating higher heights. Therefore, temperatures are warmer than normal in a ridge due to the warmer temperatures and sunnier weather. This is especially true when a ridge occurs at high latitudes. Certain regions of jet streaks are more favorable for rising or sinking air. Where convergence occurs in the upper levels, sinking motion results. Where divergence occurs in upper levels, rising motion results. The convergence and divergence in a jet streak are the result of an imbalance of forces as a parcel accelerates into a jet streak, then decelerates out of the jet streak. If you have a question about a weather topic, you can drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
2015 in spaceflight is going to be hard to top. Here are my top 5 for the year. At number 5, the Mars rovers continue to roll on. At the close of 2015, Curiosity reached Sol 1210, and Opportunity reached Sol 4243 of its 90 Sol primary mission. Researchers from Georgia Tech, go ACC, announced that they discovered evidence from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter of briny liquid water just beneath the surface creeping down Martian slopes. At number 4, it's been a pretty good year on the launch pad. China closed out 2015 earlier today with a geosynchronous satellite launch. This brings the overall record for the space launch business to 81-6 for the year. Those 6 failures included 2 lost ISS resupply missions, beginning with the launch failure of a Russian Soyuz rocket, followed by that of SpaceX. Cargo flights quickly resumed, though, and both rocket families had returned to flight inside of 2015. At number 3, a Hail Mary attempt 5 years in the making was successful in 2015 for the Japanese Venus Climate Orbiter mission. After the original plan failed in 2010, engineers placed the spacecraft in safe mode and began work on a daring plan to use the smaller maneuvering engines to put the spacecraft into orbit the next time around the Sun, and it worked. We can look forward to slowly learning more about stratification and dynamicism of the atmosphere of Venus in coming months. At number 2, New Horizons. This baby grand piano-sized spacecraft has returned spectacular images of Pluto, and it will for about the next 6 months. One of the first things that was noticed was the freshly resurfaced nitrogen ice sheets. They were described as, quote, one of the youngest surfaces we've ever seen in the solar system by Jeff Moore of the New Horizons geology team. And we've known Pluto's had a feeble atmosphere since it was first observed back in 1988. But what we didn't expect was that it extends 93 miles above the surface. Geology and atmospheric science aside, even the 1,000-mile-wide heart-shaped feature in Pluto's southern atmosphere has gotten people talking. But my pick for the most notable event in space exploration in 2015 tops my list not so much because of the event itself, but more because of the future exploration that it may bring. On December 22nd, SpaceX landed a 14-story tall first stage of their Falcon 9 rocket at the recently constructed Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral. Next on Elon Musk's to-do list, quote, figure out how to make reuse as easy as possible so that really no work is required apart from refilling the propellant tanks, unquote. If they can pull this off, it will usher in a new era of space exploration. Costs are high because we don't recycle. Even reusing just the first stage can significantly bring down the price tag of future exploration. Elsewhere in the sky, this Saturday at 22:49 UTC or 5:39 p.m. Eastern, Earth will be at perihelion, or the closest point in Earth's orbit to the Sun. Yes, that closest point does occur during winter in the Northern Hemisphere. That's your Astronomy Outlook Follow me at RTP Hokey for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
This is the weather roundup for January 4th, 2016. It's turned cold, and that's it. No, who left the back door open, Rick? Is that your fault?
I will take no credit for that, but yeah, it's definitely felt like winter around here lately. I mean, I think we've been in the 20s, lower 20s every morning, and lots of frost on the cars, and don't see any real change in that pattern for a while. So the people that were whining about not having any winter, I hope you're satisfied now, because it seems to be here for a while.
Yep, looks like a pretty good Arctic flush coming up next week, too, and we all might be pretty cold. But the El Nino blowtorch is shut down for now. But, yeah, again, we'll go right on to the email bag. I'm trying to get this pre-recorded stuff in early, so let me hit one email here.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
So somebody hit me up on the tweeter today, and I promised I'd read their email. It says, I watched the tornadoes on a live stream like so many did last month. This is right before Christmas in Mississippi. I can't recall which day it was, but a police agency had blocked the highway in the wrong direction, and it actually caused a traffic jam right where the tornado crossed the highway. And the question is, how can public safety agencies, and I would assume maybe this person works for one of them, I don't know for sure, how can they be better prepared to act as the event is ongoing instead of once it's passed? And is there a good option? So let me throw it out to the panel here. Rick, you've dealt with traffic jams and tornadoes. Should law enforcement try and block off sections of an interstate highway or a major thoroughfare prior to the arrival of a tornado, or is the lead time long enough?
It depends on the situation and the location, and every event is completely different. We've had situations here where it's been very successful. I think we would have had a lot more problems on May 20th, 2013, for example, had the Oklahoma Highway Patrol not shut down I-35. They've got lots of experience doing that, and usually they do a good job of knowing where to cut it off. It can be tricky, though, if you've got multiple tornadoes. If tornadoes aren't moving in a straight line, which they almost never do, I think it requires some coordination. I actually talked to one of the OHP troopers. We were riding with him to go look at some of the damage after May 20th, and I said, how do you know where to shut down? How do you know what roads to block? And he's basically just listening to the car radio, the simulcast of the TV meteorologist, and tracking the position like that. Now, we've coordinated with them before and tried to give them some specific locations. It can be done, but you can also cause more harm than good doing it the wrong way. And we've actually talked about doing some special training for law enforcement on that.
Yeah, I would love to hear more, because to my knowledge, Brian Peters, correct me if I'm wrong, they have never done that in our state, have they? To your knowledge? I don't know of any case like that.
Well, if you're talking about major thoroughfares, probably not. But I do know in my tenure as WCM at Birmingham that there were several times where police did block roads. For example, the Piedmont tornado, where they could see where it was and it was crossing the road. They did block the road so that people wouldn't drive into it from that direction. I think one thing that's very important is for law enforcement to have spotter training so that they understand storm structure.
Yeah, it's often if you watch me on television, I'll say you shouldn't be driving on Interstate 65 from the Clear exit to the Jemison exit. Yeah. Nobody should. It's easy for us to make that call in the studio, but having to put people on those streets and block those interstates, that is a logistical challenge. But I think there's great value in that, and for these large, violent tornadoes, I think there is adequate lead time to do something about it. So maybe we ought to do a show. That's just a great email and a great topic. But anyway, I want to get back to Carol, and before we do that, I'll show you some how some more social media. Yes.
I muted her during the recorded segments because there was noise, and I can't seem to unmute her. Do you have that?
She can unmute herself. I can't do
Carol,
that.
down on your
can.
thumbnail, you might have to hit that little muted thing, or up on
There
top.
we go.
There she goes.
Hello there.
Sorry about
I'm
that.
back.
I was getting rid of the noise. But.
So this is super secret information you're watching. If you share this, we'll have to break your legs. This is what my Facebook account did, and this is pretty staggering to me. And please understand, I'm not showing this to brag. I'm just interested. All of this is new to all of us, but we had some active weather around Christmas, and we went through a week period there, about a 6-7 day stretch where the post reach exceeded 16 million.
And this is a brand page, right? Oh, now he's gone.
Yes, it is. I can tell from
That's
the.
what I thought.
You
Yeah.
get analytic. That's the benefit of having a brand page, is that you can see analytics like that. Personal page.
It exceeded 1.1 million, and I just found that very interesting. And again, that's a sign that this stuff is. Hello.
Hello.
I'm hearing voices. That must be Kevin.
It's Kevin.
Yeah, he's in the middle of a newscast. But anyway, I just, to me, it is very, very valuable, and to be able to have that kind of reach with a free platform, I think it's fantastic. But I'm like Kevin, I'm frustrated. But Carol, I want to turn the floor back over to you.
Okay.
For number 3, 4, and 5, and after that we'll do picks of the week, and Nate's gonna have to pick it up here because we have television newscasts. But Carol, the floor belongs to you, so you take it. Go.
Okay, I'm going to run through 3, 4, and 5 pretty quick, and we can talk more about anything that strikes your fancy. But I would say number 3 would have to deal with visuals. Uploading a visual is the single most important action you can take in your social media. Let me state that again. Uploading a visual, very important. Photos and videos are no longer icing on the social cake. They are the cake, especially on Instagram. But beyond that, people mistake Twitter as being a text messaging platform. They tend to obsess on the fact that they can only fit in 140 characters. But I would just ask you to remember the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Not only will you communicate more with the visual, your post, we know at the Social Reports, is guaranteed to be seen by more people if it has a picture attached to it.
I've read 27% higher engagement for images.
At least. I would say at least. I would say, well, what we have done, what we do specifically, is we study the tweets that earn more than 20 retweets. 20 retweets is really kind of the break point. The vast majority of posts get less than 20 retweets, and we all know this from our own personal experience. The ones that get more than 20 are special in some way, and well over half have a picture. They always do. And the ones that go viral many times do. Many times do.
Have you done, does that include qualitative research or just those numbers? Because if it's, pictures of kittens, that's different than right?
Actually, it doesn't make, I mean, if you're talking about something that's going to be retweeted a lot of times, usually it's a pretty compelling picture. I mean, how do you measure a picture of a tornado and a picture of a kitten? It touches different parts of your heart and your brain. So it's just not one lever you're pulling. My only point is the visual brings the post to life. You can say only so much. The picture brings it to life.
I'm drilling down on the 20 retweet thing. Because what my question is it mostly cat pictures that get 20 or more, or is it mostly snow pictures or a tornado picture? That's what I'm asking. If there is anything
that's
done
why
on
I made the point of saying it's within our database in the Social Reports. So we study primarily news, weather, and sports people.
Right.
And they're not usually retweeting cat pictures. They're not. What they're usually posting pertains to news, sports, and weather.
Okay, so there's no specific qualitative research other than the pool in which you're swimming.
Well, what I can tell you, and this would probably be of particular interest to weather people, is that a lot of times weather people will put up their 7-day forecast and weather graphics and maps and this and that. The pictures of your actual town that viewers send to you and that you shoot yourself do much better than the graphics. The graphics are okay, and there is a value to pushing out your 7-day forecast. I'm not saying don't do that, but weather people as a whole would be better served to work harder at pulling in more pictures of nature.
Yeah. Do you advise then to let your weather graphics system tweet out the current conditions at the top of the hour every hour?
We talked about this while you were out.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah.
I'll have to hang up and listen later.
Yeah, they don't. Those I'm not going to say they do harm, but they're not really helping. They're not helping. No, I don't think.
I'm sorry. So I interrupted.
They appear robotic. Okay, I'm going to move on to number 4 because I know we're getting tight on time here. The other thing we see a lot that really needs to probably be brought out is the whole notion of auto posting from Facebook and Instagram on Twitter. This is the equivalent of, I would say, smoke and mirrors to make it look like you're everywhere when you're not. The fact is no one is able to post 24/7 on every platform. So Facebook and Instagram notably have encouraged users to copy whatever they create for their channels onto Twitter with a link sending traffic back to those platforms. This functionality is set up for the sole purpose of growing traffic back to Facebook and Instagram. It's not to make a great Twitter experience. It doesn't help your Twitter experience. The content is nearly always too long, and it screams that you're somewhere else posting, and that it's a big turnoff.
Do you guys think that Facebook dings you for not posting natively, like using a service like Social News Desk and whatnot?
No. Mm-mm. There was a time in which the schedulers, your pictures sometimes didn't look as good, but Social News Desk is a great product.
Because there are those who
Twitter
report.
is a great product.
There are those who reported it earlier on that, and I don't hear it as much now, but that they reported a much diminished reach and engagement
Really?
under the assumption that Facebook was dinging you for not posting natively. And Social News Desk went and talked to Facebook because they're at a level where they can, and they said, oh, well, no, Facebook said that they're not doing that. Well, as if Facebook is going to tell you the truth.
But why would Facebook care about that?
Because they want you and everybody, they want you especially, but everybody else to be natively engaged in the platform rather than through a service.
I haven't heard that. I would kind of be surprised if that were the case.
Wasn't Brad one of the ones that noticed that early on, Nate?
Yes.
Yeah. Does he still?
And early on, it was actually something that Facebook admitted they were doing, and I think there's documentation online about that.
Oh, really?
They've stopped. They've claimed that they've stopped doing that. Again, you have to take them at their at face value, but and the penalty doesn't seem to be as much. But there was a time when they were actively penalizing posts that weren't generated natively.
Yeah. Well, every company in America uses some sort of scheduler. I mean, they couldn't pull off what they do if they didn't. So that's interesting.
Okay. I'm sorry, go on.
I mean, Lee, I was just going to say, having your Instagram account set up to auto post to Twitter makes even less sense because Twitter doesn't even display a thumbnail of the image, when of course the photo or the video is the whole point on Instagram. So we've seen evidence that this sort of auto posting actually decreases engagement with your Twitter account overall. So I guess my advice, to sum it all up, my advice would be, if you're active on Facebook and Instagram, which most of the listeners probably are, and viewers, I would say do your Twitter followers a favor and unplug the auto post in your settings. Your brand on Twitter is worth taking that time to create a custom post, upload an original image, take care of your Twitter account because it's worth it. Don't send the signal that you're just kind of, on autopilot. That's number 4. Picking number 5 is, there's a lot of other good stuff to talk about. I would say if I had to pick a number 5, it would be the whole idea of interaction. And we've kind of touched on it in the conversations earlier, but it has to do with, you can't run social media on autopilot. You have to be in there talking to people. It's a conversation. A good rule of thumb, and this is a generality, but just take it for what it's worth, a good rule of thumb is that 25% of your timeline should be interaction. It should be thanking people for that picture they sent in, thanking people for following you, replying to comments that are made on your posts. If you aren't replying to the people who are taking time to interact with your content, you're really missing a valuable opportunity.
Are there really people that don't understand that? Do you have to advise people of that? Because it's just stunning to me that that people have to be told that.
Do you think she means yes?
Kevin, I think you and I have missed a business opportunity here because things that people, I mean, seriously, I mean, things that we on this show and the people that watch this show sort of take for granted, clearly there's a lot of people that don't know that.
Yeah, somebody we had on, he was a guest weatherman, I can't remember who it was, but from Rochester, was he? I remember him talking about somebody coming in from the company or wherever, a consultant, whatever it was, and we asked him, I said, you know, did this sound like news to the people in the newsroom? And they were, he was like, oh yeah, they all didn't know. And we were like, you got to be kidding me, this is just all common sense. I got to go do the news.
I will tell you this, sometime, or part of the onboarding process when we take on clients is we ask people to estimate all of the things we've talked about on the show. How often they do this, and how often they do that, and how often they do that. And generally people misjudge how often they're posting, to what degree they're using hashtags, to what degree they're including links in their posts, to what degree they're uploading pictures. You tend to think, oh yeah, but then in actual practice, there's a little bit of a disconnect.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody would quarrel with the fact that they need to be interacting with the people on social media because it's social, and they'd be, oh yeah, that's duh, I know that.
They just think they're already doing it.
Yeah, I gotta duck out, Carol, because I'm in the studio. I apologize, but thank you. I mean, Nate, I'm giving Nate my accelerant hat, and he'll keep going because you guys can talk all night. But I
have a picture of me in that hat now.
Carol and I argued back and forth at NWA, and there's a little bit here, but the thing that I did like is that she's working for the individual, and that she's in a system that is right or wrong. She's trying to help those, and so I respect you for that. And they've started the news here, so thanks for coming, Carol. I gotta go.
Thank you. Bye.
We can all whisper now. He's in the studio.
So let me ask you this: in terms of TV Mets specifically, who are online doing this social media thing. We've talked about James. We've talked about Skilling and some other folks. You've given us 5 great tips, I think, that are pretty good. Mm-hmm. What are, in general, what does a good timeline look like? You've talked about, let's see, 25% should be interaction. No more than 1 tweet in 20, so about 5% should be promotion.
So the other 70% should be information.
Okay.
And most of that information should be weather, if that's what you do for a living.
Okay.
Because you have to you can't lose sight of the fact, and this is where strategy comes in. You have to keep your eye on the prize and keep in mind that most people are following you because of what you're uniquely in the position to talk about and to tell. And for meteorologists, have it great. I mean, first of all, you've got something new every day to talk about. Other professions have a much more difficult time in social media because they have to manufacture things that they think people are going to be interested in. But hey, you guys wake up every day, people are interested in weather, and your audience is there. They're waiting to be fed. So the challenge comes in to resisting the urge to just kind of push it out there and make it more of a cookie cutter solution to just feeding the beast. You can't look at it as just feeding the beast. There has to be personality. The best timelines I see are witty. They put weather in context. We just did an analysis of 2015 for all of our clients, and we took and looked at the top 10 tweets in terms of retweets and replies that have been received by those posts in calendar year 2015. And for the weather people, almost without exception, their top tweets were weather put in context. Like a great graphic being put together. Did you know this was the rainiest month we've had in 6 years? You know, the rainiest September we've had in 6 years, or something like that. Something that puts a larger view on it, like only you or you're one of few people that would be in the position to even make that sort of analysis. That's what you have to think in terms of. People totally respond to that kind of content because they can get the forecast anywhere. They can get the forecast on their phone.
Yeah.
They know what the temperature is, but they're not going to get that kind of information. That's social media really used at its best.
Yeah, so, from the Weather Service perspective, we're mainly talking about TV, but that's definitely true with us, and I tell our forecasters that all the time. We have information nobody else has. This weather trivia, this is the hottest day ending in Y since whatever date. And
Since yesterday.
Since yesterday. And I tweeted something out last week or whenever those tornadoes are going on about deaths, that we'd had now more deaths in the last 2 days than we had the whole year. And that was retweeted, I just checked, like 435 times or something. It was just a sentence, just a statement.
Congratulations, Rick. That's awesome.
But that was a simple thing. It's just a fact, but it's a hook that nobody had put it together or said it, so it's interesting that you said that.
Well, one other comment I want to make, or point I want to make, is weather people don't always just have to talk about the weather. You should be posting about anything you find interesting. One of the top tweets of one of the weather talent that we follow this past year had to do with the election year. She had found an article, the New York Times, you may have seen it, the New York Times wrote a story a while back on Donald Trump's sister. And she just tweeted out, "Hey, I never knew Donald Trump had a sister. This is really interesting. Did you?" She tweeted out that with the link to the New York Times article, and it was retweeted well over 100 times, maybe close to 200 times. I mean, it got terrific engagement. And it was one of her top tweets of the year, and that's an indication where you would have thought, well, it may not have been, is that the proper use of my account? I don't know. There's some weather people who might feel uncomfortable kind of stepping into politics, but you're not really saying, hey, I like this guy or I don't like this guy. You're just saying, isn't this an interesting story? Who knew he had a sister who's also in the public eye? So, one thing is, like, are you sharing with your social audience kind of a 360 view of what you find interesting? Because once they're following your brand, they tend to respect your opinion in other areas too. So don't limit yourself or put kind of a fence around what you're willing to share socially, because the more adventurous you are in terms of the content you share and the types of pictures you share and things you find interesting, people are going to find your timeline more interesting too.
My biggest tweet of the year came on the final day of the year.
Yeah.
I garnered 500 retweets on a tweet about a plane that took off from 2016 and flew back to 2015, and apparently people thought that was great.
I love that.
That's great.
And that's up my alley because I'm working a pilot's license. I like to travel, I like to fly, and I just thought that was sort of geeky and random. And that I was shocked at how quickly
exactly what I'm
took off.
That literally is exactly what I'm talking about.
So I want one more question, and we'll let you go because we're late here, and we still need to do picks of the week. But one of the things we are struggling with in our industry is people who have social media accounts who probably have more time to do it because either they're amateurs and they're not working professionally in meteorology. They may either not have a job or still be in school, or just have the passion and combination of passion and time to post forecasts of long range forecasts of high impact weather events, be it a hurricane, snowstorm, whatever. And about this time of year, the computer models start spinning up snowstorms that never happen. But the computer model output looks really impressive. It looks every bit as impressive at day 25 as it does at day 1. And if it generates snow in the south, for example, we're going to get lit up about it. Mm-hmm. And there's a big to-do in our industry about, do we need to have our people credentialed? Do they need to have a seal? Is that going to cut through it? And do meteorologists need to be putting that information out there? How do we need to be engaging? Should we be engaging these people at all publicly? Do you have any thought on that in terms of, for two reasons? Number one, maintaining a good personal brand, but also in terms of dealing with people who are in the social space who may be using the media better than we are. But putting information out there that is irresponsible, potentially dangerous, that sort of thing. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's probably, I can't imagine that it's pretty troubling to see that and to see people getting success with it and to see the public buying into it. I think it's garbage in, garbage out. And the professionals and the people with a reputation and credibility have to call it out. And I don't think you can afford to stand by and say, well, it's harmless. Who's going to believe this, guy, because they are. And I would just I would encourage and call on your industry to take a firm stand against alarmists. And that's what it is, really. It's alarmists. I don't think you can really forecast anything beyond 7 days, can you? I mean, I used to laugh at stations that did 10-day forecasts, and I was like, 10-day forecast? Really? Seriously? Can you do that? I don't know. I know technology's come a long way.
So are we helping those people by giving them notoriety by calling them out as their, what? Well, I think we have this sort of question, I think, with news content too. I mean, do you report on every bomb threat at schools? I remember there was a time where bomb threats made at elementary, middle schools weren't reported on the news because we didn't want to give the people who were doing it, and that was a different time. We didn't have the terrorist threat that we deal with now. It was just sort of this homegrown type of thing, and we didn't want to give them any press or publicity or that sort of thing. Are we running the risk of giving some of these pages more press, using our microphone, our megaphone, to draw attention and eyeballs to a site that might not be seen by as many people? I mean, one of my contentions is even we see these quote unquote staggering share numbers for some of these posts, but compared to the new ratings for even a number 3 station in a market, in terms of the number of eyeballs, it's tiny. Are we getting ourselves bent out of shape about this, or is it really something that it's worth using our megaphone to call these people out?
I think it depends on what they're reporting. I mean, I think it's almost like a case-by-case basis. But if they're reporting something that's really going to cause alarm, then I think you have your duty to say, hey, there's some noise out there about in the blogosphere that we're going to get hit with a blizzard in 3 weeks, and people are starting to freak out. Let me tell you, there's absolutely no way that could be predicted. Might we get a blizzard in 3 weeks? Who knows? But, I think you have to take it case by case, Nate. I see your point. You don't want to give them credibility and give them more, attention than they deserve. But if they're reporting something that's so irresponsible that it's causing panic, then I think you got to say something.
I think panic is probably a strong word. I mean, we do have, as a matter of fact, James's pick of the week actually identifies a number of questions that he was asked about a snowstorm that's 2 weeks out if it ever happens at all. And some of these things on an individual basis, are we talking mass panic? Probably not. Are we talking about significant inconvenience or worse to single individual people? Yes, and
Yes.
I
How
think
many bloggers like that would you say have an audience?
Oh, wow.
it's hard to really hard to say because it depends on the region. There's some regions that have 2 or 3 of them. There's a couple that have just one that has a larger audience. I'm actually looking at hold on one second, if I can spell. And this particular one has the total number of likes is a small fraction of our of even one of our lowest rated newscasts in terms of the number of people. And in terms of the shares, we're talking, even in the biggest cases, a few thousand. Mm-hmm. But it does get people talking. It's a lot. We get a lot of questions about this. So, that's
certainly if you're asked questions about it, you have to say that's a bunch of baloney or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you do. Yeah. I guess if I understand your question correctly, you're asking, how far should you go to call out these sort of, charlatans.
And a slightly different flavor of that question was, do we have folks, for example, who call us out on social media for, say, interrupting programming during a tornado warning, for example. James had a case of this in his market recently, and he just retweeted the complaint. Is that a proper way to deal with that? Is that too much retweeting, and he shouldn't do that? Should we keep scoring on these people just by retweeting their comments and letting people see it?
I kind of like that approach, actually, because it's super transparent. I mean, you're acknowledging the fact that people are angry, and it makes them look foolish, honestly. And you could just let it get under your skin and just kind of feel like, oh, these people are making me nuts. So, James, I guess, went to do his show, but I'm sure he would say that it's probably therapeutic for him to be able to just flip it around and let people know, right?
I think he's getting more therapeutic, too, because I think he's doing it more. Yeah. I think there was a day when he would just ignore it and try not to even acknowledge it, but I think instead of acknowledging it poorly by retweeting it, it does, like you just said, Carol, it makes the tweeter look rather silly.
Right.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap our conversation here. It's coming up on 11:15 in my time zone, and we appreciate you being on. We're going to do a segment here at the end of the program called Picks of the Week. It's where we go around the table and share anything weather-related. Can be a book, a movie, a tweet, a website, blog post, whatnot. I have a couple of them. Mine is a post from Dr. Patrick Marsh of the Storm Prediction Center taking a graphical look back at days where there was a Storm Prediction Center risk, at least marginal risk, issued in every place across the continental United States. Pretty cool stuff. And Oklahoma, not in the highest number of days, not in the highest category of days for the most part. One little part of Oklahoma, but Oklahoma City not in that highest category. Kansas, on the other hand, showing up pretty nicely. Should definitely check that out. James's pick of the week is a fantastic essay. Calling it a blog post does not do it justice. It is an essay dealing with these social meteorologists, as we call them, talking about these long-range snow forecasts and what people need to know about them and what people should do about them, not only people in the public, but also those of us in the industry, how we might be able to deal with it. Some really good food for thought there. Brian Peters, the pick of the week from you, sir.
Yes, well, as you know, we had some historic flooding and a tornado or two on December the 23rd through the 25th of 2015. So we ended the year on a big note. So the National Weather Service office in Birmingham has done a very nice post, a web post about it with an overview, pictures, videos, charts, upper air charts, surface charts. So that's going to be my pick.
Excellent. Rick Smith, pick of the week, sir.
Well, related to that the severe weather that happened before and right after Christmas over the southern part of the U.S., there were so many good websites and stories and articles to choose from. I picked one a little bit different. Our friend Tim Marshall was featured in a Dallas Morning News article that evidently ran on the front page above the fold a couple of days after the tornado. And Tim, once again, highlighting the building practices that continue to go on in tornado-prone areas or everywhere, I guess. But some of the things he found on his damage survey that he's found also wherever he's done a damage survey, building practices that may technically be up to code, but getting to the point where there are simple things we could probably do to help make these houses a little bit more tornado resistant. So I thought that was a really good article. There's a video there also with the link, I believe. So
hey Rick, I really enjoyed the one where they bothered to put the bolts into the cement, but they didn't bother to put a nut or a washer.
That's a common thing that Tim finds all the time. Is well, you said put a bolt. You didn't say anything about a nut or a washer. So
I just can't believe that. By the way, I also wanted to give a shout out to Lake Superior State University because they have a list of banned words that they put out annually, and I was browsing their list, and in 2015 they banned the words polar vortex, and I thought that was great.
Fantastic.
Awesome. So give them a shout out. If we had a WeatherBrains seal of some sort, or something, they would get it.
And I want to do a secondary pick of the week on top of Rick's. I'm privileged to be a friend of Tim Marshall's on Facebook, but he also posted a lot of stuff on his personal Facebook page that was visible to everyone. And as he was doing damage surveys in North Texas after the tornadoes last week, was taking pictures and commenting on stuff that they found, stuff that didn't make the article in the Dallas Morning News, but or the blog post for that matter. But just fantastic stuff. And I think if you're in a position, my folks just built a house up in the mountains of North Carolina, but if you're in a position getting ready to build a house anywhere, and go back and look at my pick of the week to see what your danger was for 2015, if you're anywhere in the, I'd say, yellow-green category on up, you should probably be looking at these building practices and taking it to your builder and saying, don't just do the code, but use a little common sense.
Yeah.
Don't just stick the bolt in there and don't hang anything on it. Put the bolt in there, and then, a washer and a nut. Actually, finish the job.
Yes.
And do that. It's little things. It's little things that might add 1% or 2% to the cost of the house, but you can turn around and take that. For one, you can take that to the insurance company and get lower rates. Number 2, it might save your life, which is kind of a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah. And one of the coolest pictures Tim posted is, I guess somebody asked, well, what is this supposed to look like? So I think he had a side-by-side of something he found on the damage survey, and then he had an example of what that bottom plate is supposed to look like with an actual nut and a washer on the bolt, and how things are tied together. And so yeah, he had some great stuff on there. It was he's always, you hate to see him come to town for that reason, but it's always good when he's there, because you learn a lot.
You do.
Absolutely. And we should backfill this for those that don't know. Tim Marshall is a storm chaser who is a structural engineer by training and by trade. So he brings a particular eye and perspective to damage assessments that you really don't get and no disrespect to just average meteorologists going and checking stuff out, but I don't look at things like he looks at things, and he sees things that are mind-boggling, but also in a lot of cases very simple and relatively inexpensive to fix. Carol, do you have a pick of the week for us? Otherwise, you can self-promote. We're all about that here on the program.
Wow, I didn't know about the pick of the week, but I will say this has been awesome, guys. We've covered a lot of good information. Hopefully it's been, there have been a few takeaways for folks. I would just say I'd love to hear from people to get feedback on what we talked about. If you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter, Carol Fowler. If you want more information about the Soch reports, we have a website, thesocreports.com, thesocreports.com. Check it out there. Otherwise, I've had a great time. Thanks for having me.
No, we really appreciate you being on the program and taking the grilling. Kevin, I still feel bad. Kevin and I walked away. We're like, did we hurt her feelings? We're glad you came on the program anyway.
Oh, I have a thick skin. No worries. No worries. I was a news director, remember?
Yeah, exactly. You have to have a thick skin in this business, and we figured you could take it. You certainly did here, and I appreciate you coming on the program tonight.
Thanks, Nick.
This is WeatherBrains. It is the original all about the weather netcast. We produce it typically live on Monday nights. Next week will be a bit of an exception, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm going to pull up my calendar before
You're correct.
Okay, I'm going to get myself in trouble here, but I go through next couple of weeks. So normally we do the show on Monday nights. Next week it will be on Tuesday night at 8:30 Central. We will have the Joe Bastardi from WeatherBell Analytics. I guarantee you that show's going to light Twitter up. That's going to be fun. So I definitely want to join us for that. Following week, the 18th of January, Scott Denstadt from 4Flight will be talking about in-flight cockpit weather. I am really excited about that. Upcoming shows now, we've scheduled pretty much through the middle of March now. My Weather Concierge, Sunset Weather. We'll have Dennis Mercero, formerly of The Vein, now with Mental Floss. This is good stuff. We'll have him on the program. So we got a lot of good shows coming up. If you have a suggestion, you want to get somebody that you know on the program, Carol even gave us a suggestion tonight. Shoot us an email at weatherbrains.com. You can find us on the Facebook or Twitter. We're at WeatherBrains. WeatherBrains on Facebook, plus WeatherBrains on Google+, all that kind of stuff. You can find the program iTunes, Stitcher, of course, on the website, weatherbrains.com. All of our bios, picks of the week, the whole 9 yards, how to get a hold of Carol. It's all there. We'll be waiting for you once the program is posted overnight tonight. For all the gang here at WeatherBrains, I am not James Spann. Good night, and God bless.
Good night.
Good night, Carol. Thank you.
Carol,
You
fantastic.
bet. You're welcome.
Hey, Carol, if I get up to Chicago, can I come see you?
Oh, for sure. Stop
Yeah,
by.
my daughter lives up there.
Oh, really? Does she live in the city or out in the suburbs?
She lives north of Wrigley Field.
Oh, definitely the city.
She's a stage manager and works primarily at the Royal George Theater.
Oh, really? Yes, I've been to Royal George. Yeah, look me up. Our offices are actually at the Merchandise Mart, which is right downtown, very convenient. So, love to have you by.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Chicago's one of my favorite places to visit. I definitely don't want to live up there. Thank you. But I love to visit.
Right now, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, you. Carol. It was a blast. Thanks, Nate. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Uh-huh.
Carol Fowler. Very interesting topic, obviously, for a lot of us, and that we're using social media now. Oh, yeah. This is the good part here. So we're on two shows at once. So WeatherBrains meet the Periscope people. Periscope people meet WeatherBrains. For those watching on Periscope, this is what the control panel looks like for Google Hangouts. And we're about to stop the broadcast here because obviously it's hard to do two at once. Anyway, WeatherBrains, folks, thank you for watching. And look, there's still 28 people watching down there. That's always amazing to me. 28 people are watching an empty chair. Thanks to Carol for coming on the show. Hate that I missed the end of it, but so it goes with being on television here. So I will listen anxiously tomorrow to the edited version. So we are going to end the YouTube stream again. WeatherBrains, thank you. Carol, thanks. Great having you on the show. We'll see you guys next Monday night. Bye-bye.